Good day, grade 12, and welcome to English First Additional Language. I am Mr. Macherman, and today we will have our first lesson together. Our first lesson being obviously paper 1. Now, of course, up until now, your teacher has done everything in class, and I'm sure you have done the rest. And most importantly, I'm sure that by now you should be ready for the examination. But of course, these are just more tips that you could utilize to prepare for the examination. So, what does paper 1 entail or expect from you? Obviously, it has the following in there, okay? It assesses your language abilities, which are comprehension, firstly, which is your question 1, and that is our focus for today, your summary, visual literacy, and then language and editing skills. Now, very important, this question paper counts 80 marks. 80 marks, okay? So out of your 3 question papers, it counts 80 marks, your paper 3 being out of 100 and your paper 2 out of 70. Now, very important, you have 2 hours for this question paper. My advice, manage your time. Most importantly, manage your time. I cannot overemphasize this enough. You need to manage your 2 hours, especially when it comes to the comprehension, which we are going to focus on today. Your question paper provides you, grade 12, with time management. It tells you exactly how many time to spend on the sections. Now, if you don't adhere to those, automatically you're going to run out of time. And I'm sure you don't want to run out of time. Okay? Then we note, very important, we need to read before we answer the question. That is most important. You have heard this since grade R. You cannot just answer a question. It is the same when we have a conversation. Okay? If I ask you something, there should be a response. But you need to listen to the question and you need to understand the question before responding. Now, in this case again, you need to read the question, comprehend the question, and then you can respond to it. Okay? Very important. Then, like I said, you need to manage your time. Right? Thus means do not rush through the question paper. Answer it to the best of your ability. You've got 5 questions of which you've got 2 hours. Right? 5 questions. So every question, answer it to the best of your ability. Then we look at the fact that this question paper counts 20% towards your final mark at the end of the year. 20% is a lot. I'm sure you are aware of that. So very important, give your best. And then, this is it's your first question paper. First. Which means when you prepare for this examination, you are going to put in everything for paper 1. Don't take your time and waste it. Rather, take your time and prepare and ensure you are ready for your paper 1. And then lastly, you cannot use past papers and expect that what you are studying from the past paper is going to be the question paper you are going to write at the end of this year. That is not going to work. You need to ensure that you use them as practice, getting a feel for the question paper. But grade 12, you cannot study this question paper as if you're going to write it verbatimly. Okay? That question paper will not be set exactly the way the previous one was set or the ones you are going to go through. This question paper will be set according to the prescripts, which would be question 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as per the papers you are going to use to prepare. But the text will be different. Thus, the questions will be different. So, speaking of questions, let's look at questions. Okay? So, questions we speak to instructional verbs or question words. This mainly asking you, what are you supposed to do? What is it that you are being asked in the examination to actually do? So before we get to the actual text of a comprehension, let us first look at the questions or instructional verbs or question verbs, if you may call it that. Okay? So we look at question words. There are 5 levels to the questions, right? Level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we note that level 1 and 2 questions, these are easily accessible questions. Why do I say easily accessible? They are right in front of you. The answers, grade 12, are right in front of you. So let's look at the first one. It says literal. So literal questions are questions that question about information that is clearly given, you see there? Clearly given in the text or extract from the text. So very important, if you look at these types of questions over here, right? You see that it says name, state, give 2 reasons, identify, describe, just to mention a few. That already tells you, grade 12, that these questions are based on the text and it's easily accessible in the text. Okay, very important. So you will see that this is question type and it says what you need to do. So it already tells you here what the type of question is, and on this side it tells you what you are expected to do. Now this you can easily access in a mind the gap document. Okay, if you access this, you'll be able to realize this is how questions are posed. And if you look at past papers, this is exactly how questions are supposed to be posed. Grade 12, I will say this again. Don't expect to use a past paper to prepare for the examination. You use it as a guide and for practice, not because you think it's going to be asked exactly the same. Okay, so we move on to our next slide, right? So we look at level 2, reorganization. So it speaks to the fact that these are questions that you need to bring together different pieces of information in an organized way. Number 1, it speaks of summarize. Look at the word there, summarize. Group the common and give an outline of. Those 3 are basically similar questions. They go together because to summarize is obviously to group. And if I'm given an outline, I'm going to give main points of something, right? So if you understand the way the questions will be posed, then obviously it will be easier to respond in the examination. That makes sense to you. Then we've got what we call inference. Now this is your level 3 question. Okay? I will say that again, inference. And you need to now pay attention to what I'm going to say. It says, these are questions that you need to interpret. Listen, inference, interpret, right? It means you need to make meaning of the text using information that may not be clearly stated. Look at that part there. It says there, using information that may not be clearly stated. Thus it means you need to interpret. You see, here is where your critical thinking comes in the examination. This process involves thinking about what happened in different parts of the text, looking for clues that tell you more about the character, that would be more in your literature, theme or symbol, and using your own knowledge to help you understand the text. Very important aspect here, understand the text. You must be able to understand the text. So, inference requires you to interpret. Make meaning of what you're reading, right? And like I said, it might be, it tells you exactly something that isn't necessarily purely stated. It's not that obvious. So, what are those types of questions? It tells you here, firstly, to explain. So you would explain something. In this case, for the example given here, it says explain us how this idea links with the theme. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the theme, that speaks to literature. But in your comprehension, you would explain something else. For example, explain why the writer states this in paragraph 12. So you are going to make meaning of what you have read in paragraph 12. You see, you are guided in your examination when you are told paragraph 12 or line 14, etc. It is important, ladies and gentlemen, to read. Okay? So we look on to compare. Here we would compare the attitudes or actions of. So, for example, compare the attitude of the writer when he states. Okay? So here you would point out the similarities and differences. That is how important it is to understand how these questions are set. Then what are the words, right? And when it says what are the words, you need to understand these words will then be quoted. Okay? So what do these words suggest or reveal about, etc.? Okay? In your literature, it would speak to, for example, what do the words uttered by Mr. M, and then these words are quoted, suggest about Mr. M's feelings, for example, towards Tami. Very important, grade 12. Understanding, I will say this again, how to answer the question will help you to answer the questions. Okay? Then we have here, how does character X react when, describe how something affected, state how you know that the character is, for example, okay? And then what did character X mean by expression? Is a following statement true or false? Now, true or false does not just mean a yes or no, but I will get to that later on. Right, then the last one we have there, choose the correct answer to complete the following sentence. Those are obviously, if you look at the choose the correct answer, it's much easier. However, it requires of you to make meaning. And that is what inference is. So, I must understand there are level 1, level 2, and level 3. Right? Those 3 would give you your easier 1 mark, 2 mark questions. Now, we obviously have higher order questions. And this is what requires of us to think critically. So when you read, you must make meaning of the text. When you read these questions, you must be able to understand what is it that is actually being asked. Okay? So let us look at these types of questions. So those we call evaluation and appreciation. And these are your level 4 and 5 questions. Right? So what are evaluation questions? These are questions that require you to make a judgment based on your knowledge and understanding of the text and your own experience. I will repeat. These are questions that require you to make a judgment based on your knowledge and understanding of the text and your own experience. Now look at the questions here. It says, discuss your view. But ladies and gentlemen, if I speak of discuss your view, obviously it is about the text. So if I look at discuss your view and the text is about, for example, teenage pregnancy, it cannot just be a thing of you want to impose your view, but your view based on what you have read after you've made meaning of the text, right? Then we look at do you think that. If I look at a question such as do you think that, and especially do you agree with, in your opinion, give your views on, ladies and gentlemen, grade 12, you need to substantiate why you say certain things. These questions require of you to be able to give answers to it. Which means you must be able to say because of this, that, and the other, based on the text. And not you wanting to bring in your worldview and then you answer your question. Read the question, answer the question. Very important. Okay? The last one says appreciation. Now, appreciation speaks to questions that ask about your emotional response to what happens, the characters, and how it is written. Very important, your emotional response. So, for example, how would you feel if you were character X when? Right. Now, very important here. It says there is no right or wrong answer to these questions, but you must give a reason for your opinion based on information given in the text. Once again, it takes us back to information in the text, right? Your response to the information in the text, not necessarily just you providing what you know and what you think you actually know, but it is about the text. Now, if I look at that question, okay, about how would you feel? If we understand and we know the short story, The Doll's House, right? We've got the Calvis and we've got the Burnells, okay? Where one family feels that they are going to totally disregard another family because they are poor, because they have less. So automatically, question to you, I would pose, how would you feel? Or how do you feel that the one family, the girls, that they were excluded? Why were Hulle and Els excluded? Now, because they were excluded, how do you feel about that? How do you think they felt about it? And automatically, your emotional response, grade 12, would speak to the fact that you feel sorry for them because they were excluded, even though they knew they were not supposed to worry with the other girls. But obviously, you would feel sorry for them. They were not included, okay? So you have to look at the manner in which you respond. Then, discuss your response to. So automatically, you've got a response to. This speaks to, once again, providing reason, okay? Do you feel sorry for? We just spoke about that type of question, okay? And that would be more on your literature questions. And then lastly, discuss the use of the writer's style, diction, and figurative language or dialogue. Now, very important. If I look at that question, that would speak mostly to, obviously, my literature questions. Okay, so we'll move on. We look at the text. Now, ladies and gentlemen, according to my knowledge as an English teacher, my knowledge as a human being who has written exams before, the very first thing I need to do when I get my question paper, it's of course to read the instructions. But the moment that I'm told by the invigilator to start, I need to read and understand what is expected of me, which means I'm going to obviously read the comprehension text. Am I correct? Of course I'm correct. Because how are you going to answer the questions if you did not read the comprehension? So it's extremely important that you read the text. So these are my steps for you. Let's focus on them. Number one says, read the text. Now, obviously, reading the text makes sense to me because it tells me I'm going to obviously try to comprehend what the text says. And doesn't comprehend sound familiar? Because it speaks exactly to comprehension. Look at that, eh? Comprehension, which means to understand and make meaning. So the priority here is read the text. If you don't understand it after you've read it once, then you read it another time. You have 2 hours for that question paper. Take your time, right? Number 3 says, gather information from the text. For example, who wrote the text? Why was it written, right? What is the purpose for it? And what is the main idea? But now when I say speak of gather information from the text, okay? And we look at try to comprehend, make meaning. Grade 12, read paragraph by paragraph. So if you read paragraph 1, then you make meaning of paragraph 1. Because now it means you're allowing yourself to get a better understanding of the full, complete text. So you read paragraph 1, make meaning. Paragraph 2, paragraph 3, 4, etc. up until you get your last paragraph. In that way, you make meaning of each paragraph. And you will be able to tell me, sir, that is what paragraph 1 says. That is what paragraph 2 says. Why? What did you do? You made meaning of the text. And that is what is important. Okay? And then remember, don't read to just answer the questions. This is the biggest way you can fail yourself. If you're going to read the questions just to answer them. Sorry, when you read the text, to just answer the questions. Okay? Because now you read the text and then you answer the questions. Did you make meaning of the text? The priority is to comprehend. This is a skill that you will use through your whole life to be able to comprehend. So ensure that you know exactly how to comprehend. And what is important here? To read. By reading, we understand. Okay? And then lastly, always answer in your own words. If you read the instructions, grade 12, in your question paper, it tells you exactly that, to answer in your own words. Refrain from lifting from the text. Do not answer your comprehension by taking answers out of the text unless you are asked to quote. Okay? I will get to the quoting of answers now. Now, very important. I will say this again. Read, read, and read. If you're going to read, you'll be able to make meaning. But you know what is another problem? The fact that we speak the way we chat. So social media allows us to make use of shorthand. So automatically we tend to make use of the same words constantly. So you don't learn new words. You limit yourself on your vocabulary. So the moment a word is placed in a question, then you are confused. The moment a word is placed in a text, you are confused because you don't allow yourself to know more. You don't read, and then you want to come to school. You read the drama, the novel, or the short story or the poem in class. But at home, you don't read. So if you don't read, how do you expect to make meaning? It's extremely important that you understand exactly what I'm saying right now. Put in the effort. Make an extra effort to get a book or a magazine, at least an additional resource to broaden your vocabulary and learn to understand new words. Okay? We move on to the questions. So I already spoke about the questions. I've gone through the question types, okay, or the question verbs, instructional verbs, whatever we want to call them, right? So what do they ask, or what is it that we need to follow? Number one tells you to read, analyze, and understand the question. Now, I cannot answer a question if I don't know what exactly I'm supposed to do. That is why I make use of the word analyze, right? Analyze will most importantly be for your higher order questions, maybe your level 3, 4, 5. There where you need to infer, evaluate, or appreciate. Very important. So read the question, analyze them, and make meaning of it. In that way, you would know what you need to do. The second step says, follow the question word or the verb. So if it's going to ask you, for example, what is it that the people are doing in the text? Obviously, that's a level 1 question. Then you'll be able to respond. But if it's a higher order question, asking you on your opinion, you must be able to understand how are they asking you your opinion, right? Step 3 says, answer in your own words. You will see that I've placed it there in a different color. Grade 12, in your own words, unless asked otherwise. And only asked otherwise would mean you would have to quote. Then, the mark allocation is your guide on how long your response should be. At the same time, your question also will ask you a certain thing. And we'll get to questions now, right? So very important. Answer in full sentences unless stated otherwise. But don't now, grade 12, go write paragraphs. Write paragraphs full. You write the whole page full. And then there's nothing in your answer which is acceptable, which will be credited. So very important, try to adhere to answering the question in full sentences, but also answering the question. And then lastly, if you are asked to quote, use quotation marks and the amount of words requested. Now, you are first additional language learners. You will be asked to, for example, quote 6 consecutive words to prove that the following statement is false. 6. Only 6. Which means you're going to firstly provide 6 words, and secondly, you need to ensure that those words are placed in quotation marks. If the instructional verb says you need to quote to prove, then obviously grade 12, it must be in quotation marks. You cannot expect to get a mark for something you did not follow. Are you with me? Right. Let's move on to the higher order question. Right. Now we look at them. Number 1 tells you exactly there, do not confuse yes or no questions with true or false. And you will see in brackets I placed there, it's a common mistake. So for example, you are asked, is the following statement true or false? Then you state yes or you say no. You need to indicate and say it is true because. Now you give reason. Are you with me? Now you give reason. It is false because. Are you with me? You cannot say yes or no because now what are you answering? Right? You're not answering anything. Now you are only giving a yes or a no. The question wasn't even a yes or no question. Okay? It's important to know and understand the question. Then, always substantiate with a valid reason from the text. I cannot stress this enough. Always substantiate with a valid reason from the text. So even if you are asked, if it's an appreciation or an evaluation question, okay, on your feelings, for example, very important, you must support from the text. You must be able to prove what you're trying to say from the text. You cannot enforce your knowledge on the answers or the question, okay? And then we look at marks are awarded for the reason, not yes or no. This is extremely important. You will not be awarded for marks, and that is not just for yes or no. You will not be awarded marks for a question, which is 3 marks, and then you respond to yes or a no, a true or false. Now my question to you is, do you expect to get 3 marks for saying yes or no? You will not get 1 mark for answering. You get marks for your reasoning. So you need to ensure that the response you provide substantiates the yes or the no or the true or the false. You see why reading is so important? Okay, so let's move on. And then lastly, your answers should be based on the text. I've been saying this the whole time. Answers based on the text. We will not ask you questions if it is not in the text. Are you with me? Okay, so let us just, for example, look at a comprehension text, right? So we look at rethinking garbage. Now, very important, you will have various paragraphs of various lengths, of course, and various sentence sizes. That's okay. But what is important is to make meaning of the text in front of you. How do I make meaning of it? Ladies and gentlemen, I must read. But if I don't know how to, then automatically I'm going to fail myself. Are you with me? Right. So if I look, for example, at the first text there, it tells you, I'm just going to read it to you. The medals of the Olympic Games were previously made from gold, silver, and bronze obtained from the mines. They are now being made of 100% recycled e-waste. But if I now read the word there, recycled, immediately, to me, it links to the title which says Rethinking Garbage, right? Because something is being recycled now. Then it says, you may be amazed to know that the new Olympic medals are made from precious metals, recycled, right? Once again, it speaks there of recycled from old cell phones. This e-waste may otherwise have clogged up landfill sites. Similarly, you may not realize that your paper towels are actually recycled office documents and cereal boxes, or that the walkways along some of South Africa's beaches are made of plastic bottle tops. Now, just a disclaimer, this is something I also did not know, right? This is something new I'm also learning here today. But in that moment that I'm learning something new, I need to make meaning of what I'm reading. That's the priority here. So what does it require the moment you see this text in front of you? You need to read. Besides the fact that you're going to make meaning of the title, and we'll get to the title now, you need to read. And I just read paragraph 1 to you. But if I look at the title which speaks to rethinking garbage, and I look at recycling, and the fact that things are being used to recycle in South Africa itself, I see the link. I see how garbage is being used in a recycling form. So automatically, I understand and I made meaning of the text. So if I get a question, I would be able to respond to the question. Do you see how important it is to make meaning? Right? And then obviously you'll see on the other side there's also paragraphs 3, 4, and 5. But I'm not going to focus on those right now. This is an additional comprehension text I've added in. So it says aiding the youth aiding the youth by aiding the elderly. So it says there, global aging is one of the greatest challenges of the 21st century. While policymakers around the world are rethinking how society can prepare for an increasing population of elderly people, senior citizens themselves can help turn aging from a challenge into an opportunity. But now if I look at the fact that it speaks about it, an opportunity, and I understand that the title says aiding the youth by aiding the elderly, I can make meaning of what this is actually about. So it would speak to the idea of not just focusing on help itself, but on the elderly, and that there's an opportunity. Once again, what am I doing? I am making meaning of the text in front of me. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the priority here, right? If I move on, I've got questions. And it looks like a lot right now, eh? I've got questions in front of me. Let's have a look at these questions. And very importantly, see how these questions link to what I said earlier on the types of questions. And yes, your past papers are going to be a guide to you. Let's look at them. So 1.1 says there, how are the medals of the Olympic Games different from the old ones? Now grade 12. Immediately that tells me that is a level 1 question. Because it tells me and you that you are going to find this answer in the text. Do you see how important it is if I'm able to make meaning? Okay? And here it asks you how, which means in the text, it already told you one. But look at what is important here. You are given a guide because it tells you to refer to paragraph 1. So no one told you now to go to the whole text to answer just this one particular question. It tells you refer to paragraph 1. Why would you want to go to paragraph 8? Right? 1.1.2 is a multiple choice question. So you're going to choose the correct answer to complete that sentence below there. Are you with me? So you're going to read. And you see here it's important. Because here you need to understand and know. It speaks of the word clogged up. Right? In the context of this passage means the land site for has. But very important in the context of this passage. You see why reading is important? Because your clogged up could mean something else in a different context. Very important. And then the last one says there, identify 2 items that are recycled to make paper towels. Very important. Identify. Grade 12, where are you going to identify it? In the text. Nowhere else. Why? It's your level 1 question. You will be able to identify it easily in paragraph 1. Do you see how easy it actually is? Okay? Then we move on to paragraph 2. It speaks to state 2 benefits of recycling mentioned in this paragraph. Once again, level 1. Because you are going to take it from there. But you are going to write it in your own words. 1.2.2. Why is the following statement false? So, here you're going to provide reasoning, which means in your text it said something different on this matter. You must be able to state why that statement is false. You are basically proving. 1.4, I'm just going to skip that one. Quote a single word in paragraph 4 which means the same as electricity. Grade 12. A single word. One word. You need to ensure it's the correct word. It's only one word. Not 2, not 3, not 4. One word. And very important. The moment you realize that the answer you quoted is incorrect, draw a line through it and write your new answer next to it, still in quotation marks. Do not, I ask you, I beg of you, do not write your new answer just next to it. We mark the first answer. Okay? Also don't say or. We're not going to mark with a memo that speaks of or. So, draw a line through it, place it in brackets, and then write your new answer. Okay? Right, let's move on. So 1.5, once again it speaks there, identify, which means I'm going to get my answers in the text. Alright? 1.6 asks you, how has impact influenced packaging in the fast food industry? Once again, in the text. Nowhere else. And I cannot stress this enough, grade 12. You will see it tells you refer to, refer to, refer to. All you need to do, refer to those particular paragraphs. And then 1.7, it speaks to the word explain. So it says, explain why New Life Plastics is a suitable name for the company, which means if you are going to explain, you are going to infer. You are making meaning now, right? You are inferring, you are interpreting. Thus, you respond to that question in the method you would use to infer, right? To make meaning. Lastly, give 2 reasons why it is practical to use plastic to make benches. So obviously, you made meaning from what you've read. And now you're going to give 2 reasons why it would be practical. 1.8, what does the writer mean by the need for a culture change? Here, ladies and gentlemen, we get to that idea of evaluation, right? It can also speak to appreciation. Very important. It asks you, what does the writer mean by the need for a culture change? So, what meaning did you make out of that? Out of there needs to be a culture change. You need to understand. But now, grade 12, I ask you, do you even know what that means? You see how important it is to know and understand the words. Because if I don't know, this higher order question cannot be responded to. Very important. Okay? Then 1.9, discuss whether the inclusion of statistics makes the passage more convincing. I mean, really, grade 12? You need to respond to this idea. Obviously, if I think to myself, if statistics are added, it's factual truth. It's realistically provided to me. Okay? So that is the method of understanding and the questions. Lastly, Discuss the suitability of the title. Now, I'm sure you've heard this question before. You've seen it in your literature paper where you're asked to discuss the suitability of a short story, for example, right? So automatically, comprehension asks the same question. So, what is the suitability of this title, Rethinking Garbage? How does it fit in with the text? You see what is important here? What you actually asked is, does the text and the title, do they link? And ladies and gentlemen, Rethinking Garbage, and speaking of recycling, just in paragraph 1, already tells me that they link. Because if I'm rethinking garbage, it tells me I'm going to think of using it differently. And they make use of the word use instead of throwing it away. Right? And that speaks to recycling. So that is how important it is to understand that these questions guide you to tell exactly what to respond to. And of course, you have to look at your mark allocation. Discuss the suitability, a very important question. Okay, let's move on. So I'm just going to go past that additional one I gave you. But now let's look at text B. In front of you, you will see two different types of text, right? Where do they come from? Past papers, ladies and gentlemen. Past papers, right? And you will see they actually look quite similar, of which in both there are different types of visuals. But there are different types of questions, right? You will see in the first question here, it says, state two visual clues which indicate that the person is experiencing insomnia. Very important, state two visual clues which indicate that the person is experiencing insomnia. Now, if you don't know what the word insomnia means, you can't answer the question, right? But all it asks you, it asks to state two visual clues. So which means you would look at this visual, and in front of me I see 6. So there should be 2 responses you are going to provide, but 2 visual clues, okay? Number 3 asks, why is number 2, visual 3 included in the text? So I must identify visual 3 and look for it. I see there wine, coffee, and I see a cross through it. So it tells me I'm not supposed to be making use of it. So no drinking of wine or coffee. Then I'm going to beat insomnia. Does that make sense? So when you're preparing for this exam, try to stay away from all of these. And then automatically, you will be well rested and well prepared for examination. And then 1.13, what tip is suggested in visual 5? You and I both know what that tells us. Because this is the one thing, ladies and gentlemen, that keeps you not only from sleeping, but also from your schoolwork. So, I'm also giving you tips today to focus on your teaching and your learning. Thus, it means this favorite friend of yours, you also need to stay away from. And then lastly, discuss whether the inclusion of visual 6 is effective in text B. Whether it is effective in text B. Now, very important, tips to beat insomnia, right? That's what visual 1 tells us. Visual 6 over there, we will see that people are jogging, a male and a female. The question is, discuss whether the inclusion of that image or the visual is effective in text B. So obviously, you will provide your response. You would either say yes or no. Your response would speak to yes. Exercising also helps for the brain. It also helps with your body, etc. Right? You would say no. It would make you more tired. But very important, you would read and understand the visual and the question being posed to you. And that is how you would respond. Then we will look at the additional one also provided there. Once again, different visuals. And very important just to note, grade 12, these text Bs are different than previous papers. Okay? So if you would work from question papers from 2017 and you look at the paper 1 text B, you would note that the text B has changed. Okay? It's not the same. But there's no guarantee that this year the text B would look the same. you need to ensure that you familiarize how to respond to the text B, which is a visual. So let's have a look at the additional one. 1.11 says, explain how visual 1 conveys the idea of team spirit. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, we see them all together over there. They are standing behind the banner that says team spirit. They are happy, they're excited. That is what team spirit speaks to. Are you with me? Right? Then 1.12 says, identify the illustrations that suggest 1.12.1, self-confidence. Right? You must identify it. 1.12.2, creativity. Now, I mean seriously, grade 12. If I look for self-confidence, I'm going to see it in number 2. Correct? Exactly. Okay? And then creativity, at the bottom of number 4, it says I can't even speak English anymore. Inquisitiveness and creativity. Right? So, very important. It's the way you would look at it. And then lastly, discuss whether the visual indicating assertiveness is effective. So you would look at number 6. But the word assertiveness, I ask you, do you even understand the word? So, my question to you. Are you going to read? Are you going to comprehend? Are you going to make meaning? Because these tips I've shared with you requires exactly all of that. I'm going to say this again. You can make use of your past papers as a guide. But if you cannot make meaning, if you don't read, and if you're not ready for comprehension, automatically you are not going to get the best marks to get you to get that A at the end of this year. I hope and I trust you would make use of these tips when preparing and when writing your examination. I wish you all of the best with your paper 1 on the comprehension, and I will see you next time when we focus on the summary question. Thank you so much. Thank you, grade 12.